These around like they were batting gloves, fold them up and put them in our pockets from this day forward, and always have them with us as we get on the ballpark or to the ballpark or in and out of a huddle. It's just part of our equipment. So today we've got 4 topics, and they're all big topics, so I'll do the best I can to present the facts and data that we've gathered. Topic 1 is where college coach is at in this process and the impacts on them. Topic 2 is how are the players thinking? We surveyed 3,000 of the players, and our players actually did the survey, and where are they at? And later today, that'll be presented in its whole entirety with players doing it. Social distancing plan that we built together, I'll call Social Distancing Success, which is a Ballfield design that will help you maybe frame it for your local community and get it in position. And then where are we at on our guidance and our decisions that will maybe help you. Again, I would like to express to you this is data to help you put in your scenarios so you can work your plans. 230 college coaches answered. I think you can see this, 21 Power 5, 75 D1s, a nice balance of the rest. So 230 coaches gave us their opinion on the disease. And very similar to you, 53% of these people didn't have a name, meaning there wasn't someone they knew that by name that had the disease. So this is not only silent, to most of us it's unknown. Anxiety and stress on a serious level, 40% of them were feeling it, and 25% knew someone well with the disease. So this group had a little larger experience, and they had 6% had realized the damages of the disease. And so you can kind of see their thought. From a job basis, I want you to understand you're talking about people like you who may make their living in the industry, and right now they looked at their talent pool and said 58% of our players have been impacted, or 58% of us have had an impact of a player that's family has lost a job. Their staff's been cut, about 12%. Their job's in jeopardy. 8% said yes, but 34% were uncertain. Some staff jobs have been eliminated, they answered. And then jeopardy, this was probably the big one. Their jobs and their staff's jobs, 17% said yes, and 48% said they were uncertain. Scholarships to the best of their knowledge. In other words, what are they going to have available to offer your players or your talent? Over 80% still felt they would be the same. So this is kind of a bright spot in this whole thing. Less than 10% were cut, 20% cut, 30% cut. So you're going to look at segments where a few got their scholarships cut. They have some other restrictions on how they awarded their scholarships, i.e. in-state versus out-of-state. Their team budget here, this is fairly dramatic. So when they look at their team and they're managing their team budget, their travel, their equipment, their uniforms, their schedule, you only had less than 30% that stayed the same. 10% cut, 20% cut, 30% cut, and more, meaning over 75% of the market had cuts in their budget in some fashion on either travel, uniforms, equipment, support. Other items that were affected by the disease in their department or campus, team travel, fall schedule, senior scholarships, road trips, recruiting trips, hosting camps on campus, professional development. When restacked again, number one is 80% of those that we surveyed were not going to hold any events camp-wise on their campus this summer. 76% were going to see their recruiting trips slashed or changed. Team travel, 71% of them were going to see a different schedule for their team. Big road trips, 64%, 2 out of 3 would have to eliminate those. Professional development for themselves, conferences, conventions, training, 60%. Senior scholarships, 20% were impacted in this level. Freshman scholarships, 13%. Anxieties and concern level according to the head coach of the college. And so you need to understand that from their eyes, what did they see in the world that they live? And they said the number one anxiety level was at the athletic department level. Number 2 was their current players. Number 3 was their current support staff, then the incoming recruits that you guys represented, their other coaches, and themselves. So they perceived the world as that they had a pretty good orientation and that most everybody else appeared to be more nervous than them. As a leader, it appears that they believe they're in a better spot. What is the current status on your campus? So this tells you a little bit more than just the camps are off. The campus itself is almost identical. 80% or more are closed. Return in June, that's a sliver. Return in July is a sliver. Return in August is a chunk. That's not even to 10%. And then return uncertain is there. So right now they don't have an answer on return. When will they return to recruiting? So here we are producing a number of showcase events, recruiting events, and things of this nature. And I would tell you that if I'm in your eyes, and I am, I'm a club coach. I have 5 eligible teams that I oversee that are in the college range. And so when I look at their recruiting schedules, end of May, less than 10% in May. June, less than 10%. We just got the May 31st extension of Division I, not to leave campus at all. So into May in that standpoint. But predominantly 70% are just very uncertain to when they can return to recruiting. How would they be allowed to recruit? And these numbers are very interesting. Air travel to tournaments. So 1 in 8 would basically be able to get on a plane right now, and the rest are uncertain. By car to a tournament, and I think this will tell you a little bit about your strategies for exposure. 46% can say they can get in a car and drive radius themselves, although 51% don't even know if they can do that. Camps on campus, 15% think they can do something on their campus before the summer's out. Recruit visits on campus, again, 15% can even bring your kid on to take a look at the campus, or bring the kid on that wanted to see the campus to make some choices. They don't have that opportunity. What are their biggest concerns right now? And I asked them to rank them in order of how they saw them. And their biggest concern as the head coach right now is the disease. I think when I started meeting with them 5 weeks ago, their biggest concern was seniors. And now it's come all the way around to where the disease itself has taken a leadership role in their decision making. Then the next impact is their budget and the athletic department's budget. In other words, because of the disease, very similar to what I presented to you 2 weeks ago, which was what would the disease do and then what would the finances do? And would it go back and forth on each other? And they're saying the same thing here. The mental health of coaches and teams. So leadership roles are very taxing for all that are in leadership positions when they're faced with mental health of others. And in this case, they're worried about their teams. Personal risk of disease comes in the 5-hole for them, and then their personal finances. Loss of football to the softball coaches matters. And personal mental health matters. And then final physical readiness of a team. If no one can train or practice or play in the summer, will their team be ready? And then leadership mentoring help to them. In other words, who is reaching out to them? That was their top 10 picked. When we get to extended eligibility, meaning the granting of seniors another year, and then the granting of all players the year over. And what did it cause? And the ripple effect of that thing is massive. Roster management due to sheer size is their number one issue, meaning people that were used to managing 18 are now managing 23, 24. People that had 22 are now managing 28. People that had 24 are now managing 32. So the physical size of these rosters is their biggest issue. And then the financial implications of this size. So think of it this way, another set of uniforms, another training table, whatever it is, even if they're non-scholarship, those allocations have to be made. Relief financially from the athletic department. Will there be relief for this sheer size of this roster? Unintended consequence of this is all of a sudden you have academic load issues, scheduling classes, balancing people that normally would be done in 4. Now the average will be 5 years for this group. For the next 4 years, it'll be a 5-year group. Scholarship reductions from freshmen, sophomores, and juniors, meaning existing players in situations, if there's only 12 scholarships and they're not creating any more and there's more people, then there's going to be some elasticity in the model. Potential verbal reductions to recruits, meaning what they put on the table out there may not be available to them as this thing emerges. Fundraising to cover relief, meaning what would they have to do to make up extra money in their community. And a lot of the colleges right now do a lot of this anyway in the smaller colleges. Club coach education to assist in the impact. So when they approach me and I approach them, the conversation is the better informed you are with the facts, the easier it is for everyone to communicate properly. They've got real issues here. And even in some conferences, they have multi-year contracts like the Big Ten, where they have to honor this contractual relationship. But today, 8 weeks into this disease and 8 weeks into the first sport decision, these are the things that have bounced, the unintended consequence that have bounced out of the decision to allow seniors to have another year, thus everyone else. Level of safety needed to restart. And so now I'm back to the fundamentals, and they all believe the same thing. They believe they're in a battle with really safe, just like you're in a battle, and is acceptably safe good enough, and is the disease is not safe. And so when we get back to this conversation of really safe, vaccine is ready. You're going to hear this conversation. They hear it on their campus about football, about basketball, about fans, about going to classes. In other words, if we got to get to the definition really safe, then the vaccine's got to be ready and accessible. Testing of all, contact tracing, and quarantine. You hear this over and over, but we don't have testing of all, and we haven't. The people here, we've had 5 related cases in and out of our relationship with employees and their families and extended families, and there's no contact tracing right now. It's only self-quarantine. Hospital success has to be achieved, and in public guidance rules. Where we're sitting right now is the same place they hope they get the green light on, which is that it shows acceptable curves for them to play. And the same for us again. Now we realize there's a lot of similarity. Hospital success is achieved. Beds, ICUs, masks, ventilators, treatments. And they're working on a vaccine. Testing for those that show symptoms immediately, and antibody testing, and in public guidance rules to match disease safety. These are the premises that America is opened under in different states. Not under control premises we still see. Healthcare system can't handle. We see that in spikes and hot spots and flare-ups. The disease has no known cure or vaccine, and we cannot test the public to put them in any kind of diverse group. And keep in mind, one of our issues is going to be the definition of us at an event not being a very diverse group, coming from all locations, all families. Major decisions still have to be made from authorities, and when we look at colleges as an authority and we look at public facilities as authority, state open for business. So as of Monday of this next week, on May 4th, 27 states will be open in some fashion. And what I would say, if that's the phases of the federal government, most of them are baby steps. The remaining states seem to be now until June 6th. So you have another, I would say 12 or 13 that were going to come on board with their decision May 15 through 18. And then the rest of the group, and in the Northeast in particular, they're challenged with the date at all. Look for facility owners, municipalities, school districts, colleges, to issue their guidance, to just make the decision 1 to 4 weeks after. And then the actual facility opening is going to trail 4 to 6 weeks out, unless local policy prohibits. So in these scenarios, you're going to see a sequence. So if we open, example would we open today a Monday in Colorado, or we open Monday here limited. On next Monday, it's a little wider, and we're going to start to see facility owners make decisions, which we did, And most every decision was a decision to June 1, June 15, or July 31st, if they made it at all. The majority did not make a decision. They kicked the can. And so what I would use in these numbers, I would say that by next Monday, we can expect policy decisions to follow all the final opening phase of Colorado. Almost every scenario will be revised in guidance multiple times. Look for this key definition, and one I'm going to try to help you with, which is the public gathering size limitations will be issued. 10 people less is a magic bullet in space, and I'm going to show you that if you want to practice, you need to solve this and solve it better than anybody else. Exact guidance for distancing, sanitation, and personal practice equipment, protective equipment from this. And again, practice must fit this. So if you practice, size and protocol matters. And then everything else about the at-risk population has to be managed. If they're chronic, if you have a coach with a heart disease, then you better manage to it. If you have a chronic asthma, you better manage to it on what you're going to do in that space. What we've done at Triple Crown to this date is we've canceled all events through May 22. We've continued to work with almost 300 sites and about 10,000 teams on events after that. So our tentacles are in the water through 50 different employees here at TCS and CSC that touch and reach the public market. We've had to aggressively cut our costs and cut our wages and eliminate some jobs. And we're continually examining our own financial abilities. We've kept a readiness level to produce events with strict COVID-19 protocols and guidance. So meaning if we were green lighted, we know what we would do on a ball field on a diamond. We've continued to handle a national platform. And I would preempt next week's call with the idea that in all possibility, I'm going to ask you to begin to defend our political space at every level possible with some tools. We've also helped build the United Against COVID legislation that's in Washington, D.C. My son, Kerry King, the CEO of Triple Crown, has led that effort. It's a relentless effort to get our industry both recognized for protocols and recognized for disaster relief. And we've built, which will be released today, a social distancing master plan, any Ballpark USA. So it's a success plan for social, and we'll give you a copy and anyone can use it. We've resumed our own TC team practices on May 4th. We'll start in groups of 5 per field that we have. Groups of 5 per field. And we're rotating stations with same coach and equipment to try to fall under best COVID procedures. It's highly likely, because we sit on a highway, that we're going to be confronted with some kind of person who believes we've stepped over protocols. And so it'll be our effort to manage a presentation of how we did that, actual visually by the staff that's here helping me today. To shoot a photo, how we set up the practice, how we set up the dugout, how we set up the bats, the balls, how we went mask 2 and pulled masks down to practice, put them back on to come back together, how we left to the parking lot, how we managed the toilet. All things that each of you, if you want to successfully practice, will be responsible to share or lead the way in. Where are we at today, May 21? Well, Scenario B we're on, and Scenario B's starting to get, the light's starting to flicker on Scenario B, which means we think May is mostly out and early June is 50-50. Now, if your state had not opened, if your state is open today, then you're on the 50 yes side. If your state hasn't opened today, you're on the 50 no side. So this is distinctly regional in nature. We think Scenario C is still our best guess, but it's going to need political support and very good protocols on safety. And we think late June, July is a 70-30 now. I've taken that down 5%, and we believe national events will be down 30 to 40% in teams, and local events 10 to 20. So I believe that everybody that's an event organizer too in a club is going to be faced with some of these. Scenario D, if we're still in this spot, and so, for instance, I just got a notice from SEC and what they're doing, and a number of the schools have said school won't start before August 31st. And so you're going to start seeing things get to this fall moment. Academia is always going to be 3 or 4 months out on most of their decisions. The big colleges, where I think we can be 4 to 6 weeks out on public policy. But you need to understand decision cycles. January, scenario E, and then scenario F, if we're June, it's probably because SAFE was the only way anyone would let us do this. And again, I'll preface that. If you want to write me about me being wrong, then go ahead, because 100% chance I'll be wrong. Colorado 4th of July from TC. The state of Colorado opens officially May 4. We had limited opening Monday. May 4 we're open. Our lodging deposits for Colorado have been pushed back to June 1 with cancellation release. Let me be real honest with you. The college coaches that we got coming want to work. If you took their overlay and threw it against our overlay, and you got the recent decision this morning from the SEC that no in-person camp or on-campus camp can be run by any coach from the SEC anywhere through July 1, you're going to get to see that they're going to be able to watch and recruit and attend, but the things that they've been doing in the world, like with us on College Camp Sunday or Monday, are going to be limited as each of these conferences or schools define their rules. We would begin to split our colleges between the 4th of July sites. And so Plan B is well in motion, which has got Houston, Atlanta, retains Colorado, and Southern Cal. Now, I would believe that the big decision right now, even though this is supported by multiple clubs, is obviously how are you going to treat your team and yourself once you're out of a market? How are you going to protect your team and yourself once you're out of a market and you're staying overnight? And I think those protocols on an airplane are tougher than those protocols on a car. If it's a car and a drive radius, it makes more sense. Plan B would be the same Colorado 4th of July format, meaning whatever we had specialty-wise, we would try to roll in to the Colorado 4th of July format in your backyard. Our exact scheduled decision will be made May 15th. But I think you need to understand that direction is not only assumed, it's led. And right now I'm telling you that this is how we're thinking. We'll make the final decision on May 15th. Print your schedule with Colorado 4th of July somewhere, and that's the best thing that I can recommend to you. Championships, I think you need to look at every governing body and everything that you're akin or like to do, and you pull out a drive radius championship instead of big destinations. And then you start working in that space. You have your fly ready to go late July, August, but you have one other option, which is your drive. And right now we have 7 championships that we offer, from San Diego to Austin, Park City, Reno, Portland, Myrtle Beach, Atlanta. So we have a proximity reach for each of you. Next steps for you as coaches, you need to get your practice plan set and that it meets gathering protocols, and you need to set it from now on. If it's 4 people you can practice with, then set it. But I think you need to design it, put it on a PowerPoint, put it on a glossy page, whatever it is, and I know many of you are further ahead than this, but those of you that haven't need to do this, because we got to practice before we play. And then the next thing is you begin to look at drive radius events in all options. And in the next 15 days, you need to set both the local, the regional, and the airplane radius of every weekend that matters to you for what you do. Keep in mind that the likelihood of a Northeast college being in Los Angeles just got very slim, and that you're probably playing in front of the local population of colleges in most situations in June and July. Championship schedule, build that with, and this, when I say championship, Colorado 4th of July included, those big events that matter, make drive radius choices. We'll finalize the 15th. Road protocols, yay. The minute you start down through this, you're in a space that you're going to need some assistance. So in the next meeting that we have, I'll walk through what are the best assembled road protocols. It may not be the next meeting, it may be the 15th, but it'll be some way where you can have road protocols. What do you do if somebody gets sick on the road? Player, parent, coach. How are you going to handle it? How are you going to get them home? What are you going to do? What is going to be your tracing or tracking? Who was there? Those types of questions are fundamental questions that'll be, today they're not that big about contact tracing, but you go 30 days down the road and contact tracing and where you put a person and how you quarantine them is going to be big stuff. And that alone, that fear alone, will drive your radius scheduling of how your best practices are to travel. College recruitment opportunities will be regionalized all summer. There'll be rare instances where someone could come get on a plane and see a specific kid. And you need to understand that that's probably the world we'll live in June and July. Help our industry locally with best practices to open facilities for practices, games, and tournaments. So this is going to be my main outreach next week, is how can you help all of us, whether it's PGF or USSSA or ASA or Pony or the Northeast Softball Association or the Northwest, how can you help them figure out protocols and best practices to open facilities? Our new player testing company, CSE, allows us to work with smaller groups, meaning we can do 10 people at a ball field all the way up to 100 if those protocols exist for a fourplex. We start in June in 12 regions, and that's to evaluate 15, 16, 17, 18-year-old players and give them an evaluation of what levels they're at. What they do with it after that is their choice. We've hired and are in the process of hiring some 500 college coaches that can work drive radius events. Your local D2s, your D3s, your NAIs, your JUCOs that can be part of these events. Many of these events will be postured in midweek so that people are able to have a flexible schedule. And again, drive radius coaches will be hired. 2 p.m. today, we've got my players said, where isn't there a survey for us? And so we put a survey together with them and working with us, and they've led the charge out with several other programs, 5 or 6 other programs, kids. We got 3,000 players that responded. I'm going to interview a number of those on YouTube format today, along with, they'll be on Zoom, but you'll be able to watch on YouTube. They have very different stressors than we have. They want to return to play now. Their responses are very specific. 80% of them believe it's the most important thing in their life. They want to practice now. They want you to figure out how they can practice. They're worried about college and scholarships a lot. Their biggest stressor is they miss their team. They miss their teammates. They appreciate you a lot. The highest recognition I've ever seen on their parents, they appreciate their parents a lot. They appreciate their coaches. But their lives have changed. And we'll go through that today. Social distancing, success on the ball field. We built a model that anyone can have a copy. We'll have it on the Triple Crown website, the CSE website. We'll send out links and mass mailings so that you can use this modeling tool, put your name on it, give it to the local government, modify it, use it, promote it. It's full utilization of a fourplex. My sample just shows a single field utilization, but it's full utilization. We as coaches will probably be the main reason we get back on the field. I mean, we're going to have to convince the public that we all sense that we're one of the safest opportunities ever created for social distancing, but we're struggling with how to present it, and we're all going to have to present it in the next week. We're safer than almost every other activity being included and open, and we're being excluded. Don't let that happen would be my point. So right now I'm going to pull up the diagram on social media success not social media, social distancing success, and I'll walk you through a complex. This is a ballpark anywhere USA. And basically it's drawn up that this is the normal distribution of a bases loaded situation. So if you look at it, everyone is well more than 6 feet apart. We space the umpire a little back, and our catcher's a little crowded. But other than that, everyone in almost all environments is there. Envision this with 4 fields in play as you look at it. It's a 1-field diagram about 4 fields. The warm-up area on any of these fields has adequate space, 20,000 square feet, the size of a Whole Foods grocery store. 20,000 square feet. Size of our office building with 90 employees, 20,000 square feet. It has additional space all over the field that gives groups of less than 10 more than adequate social distancing. This model right here is probably the key model. What happens with dugout and spectator areas? And how do we design them? And so I'm going to break the facility down differently. How do we monitor? We need to put a safety director or a gate director on the way into the stadium. So if there's an entrance, if we're running an event, there needs to be somebody there monitoring whatever our protocols are. And playgrounds right now, unless the local municipality has elected to open them, we don't have protocols for your playgrounds. What we do have in a social distancing plan is a way to handle the restrooms, keep them cleaned, to have a park director here, to let the local entity decide what the concession stand does, to be able to enlarge the dugouts for a much better spacing for your team, to be able to designate specific spectator and college coach areas that are unique and distinct. And so an example of the dugout rules would look like this. This is a dugout, if you do a head count here, it's got 26 people in it. I played a couple teams like that, but I don't have one with 26 kids or coaches. And so it's plenty of room for social distancing, but it captures some of the bleacher, and it captures some of the extended fence line, and it requires you to bring a chair or position your bag. But we will have these posted with either X's or spots, just like anything else. The congregation area post-game or pre-game on the one way in will be designated as well. And then as you can see the spectator grouping, we've taken the 2-for-1 model that our top events see and said that 2 spectators would be allowed in for each 1 player for every team. I don't think we're going to have to cap. This is a normal sequence, but it gives you 2 distinct areas where a mom and a dad, grandma and grandpa, whoever comes in representing that player, little brother and mom, can sit and space, and there's adequate distance in the bleachers and down the sidelines. The toilets and the concession stand and the tables are always a point, we call them transition areas for social distancing success. And in that, restrooms would need to be cleaned and sanitized, meeting both our regulations as an event organizer and the local health regulations on regular intervals. We would need line management and inside distance management. In other words, what's capacity inside? And then we would need to deal with the tables. Do we cross some off? Do we have proper distancing like any other restaurant or picnic scenario? And then a roving park director, and this is normally what we have, would be responsible for managing the distancing in the sheltering areas and the bathrooms. If you take a look at the entrance to the park, this is another high transition area, which means cones set up to designate entrance and exit, pathways to incoming and outgoing players, and families to maintain social distance. So if you'll see, there's a monitor here. The gate monitor's got them going one way in and one way out with proper spacing. If there were temperature needs, checking needs, this would be where we would monitor. And again, the responsibility of any team is to never bring any at-risk person and never bring any sick person. Those 2 responsibilities sit in your hands before we get to the ballpark. So this is a social distancing plan that we can give each of you back. With the amount of time that I took and the fact that we've done a really good job in transition with all of our registrations and movement of monies forward, and we've handled a lot of questions. Specific events, I don't have answers for you. If you couldn't find them in this presentation, I'll tell you the same thing I told my team yesterday. If you can't understand what I'm saying, rewatch it, because I can't be more clear that what we're uncertain about, we're uncertain about. When we'll communicate again, we are certain about, and that'll be May 8th. And those of you that want future guidance on May 8th, and we're also going to ask you to amass the political front force on May 8th, arm you with some things to write to your local politicians, your local city director, your local municipal manager, and even to the extent of the governor. This plan made the state of governor's desk yesterday, or the governor's desk in Tennessee. So we're going to ask you next week, along with our guidance, to get ready to assist in what I think is one of the best sports for social gathering. My final punchline is this, that the average ball field is 32,000 square foot in size. And the average big model for a fast food restaurant is 2,500 square foot, includes the parking. We can put 13 of those restaurants inside a ballpark. Reduce it to the ridiculous. 13 with names. We can have an Arby's, a Chipotle, you can see. And they can all fit. And if every one of those restaurants was allowed to just have quarter occupancy, 10 or 15 people, that still is 200 people inside that infield. But over here on the infield, in any one of these squares, we're not going to have more than 4 people. So 16 total people in the size of 13 fast food restaurants. We have social distancing. Our bleachers look the same. Our backstops look the same. Our bathrooms look the same. Everything we've got can be managed at a level that almost is ridiculous that we're not back out there playing. So with that said, I want to thank you again. The stress on people like me is sizable, both the disease, the finances, and leadership role. And so for those of you, make sure you find a peer you can talk to. I encourage you to build scenarios and do a job that needs to be done. Thank you.